At 6:42 a.m., my phone buzzed with a bank alert. Groggy, I assumed it was just another automated message, but the figure on the screen jolted me awake, my pulse racing like a jackhammer. Over $30,000 spent in just 3 days. I shot up in bed, instantly alert. My first thought was fraud, maybe a hacker. But when I opened the transaction list, the charges weren't exactly subtle. A deposit at a car lot, a high-end bike shop, a baby store, and a food delivery app I knew Jessica used weekly. I scrolled through the details and zeroed in on the account number. It was the secondary gold card, the one I'd temporarily handed to my daughter-in-law. I sat there alone, breathing heavily, staring. The morning light filtering through the blinds didn't warm the chill running through me. I dialed her number. She picked up on the third ring. "Hey, Karen," she said, her voice too bright for the hour. "Everything all right?" I stayed composed and said, "I got a bank notification. The gold card's maxed out." "What happened?" There was a pause, then a laugh, not nervous, not guilty, like I'd shared a punchline. "There's maybe $10 left," she said, chuckling. "Wow, we really went through it." "What did you spend it on?" I asked. "Well," she replied, as if reciting a shopping list, "Brian's car was dying, so we got a compact SUV. Then there was a deal on a mountain bike for his brother, and I grabbed some stuff for the baby. Nothing crazy." I didn't respond, just waited. "You're awfully quiet," she said. "Don't worry, we'll pay you back eventually. It was an emergency." I swallowed hard, my mouth tasted metallic. "Can you bring the card back today?" Another pause, then a curt, "Sure." An hour later, she and Brian showed up. She handed me the card with a breezy smile, like she was returning a borrowed cup of flour. Brian lingered behind, hands in his pockets, avoiding my eyes. I took the card, gave a single nod, and shut the door. Only then did I exhale the breath I'd been holding. In the kitchen, I set the card on the table and stared at it. Just a piece of plastic with raised numbers, but for a moment, it felt like a mirror, showing me everything I already knew but didn't want to face. Then something unexpected happened. I laughed. Not loudly, not bitterly, just a soft, almost silent chuckle. It caught me off guard because the card she'd used, the one she thought she'd drained, was never tied to my actual savings, not a cent. I'd been waiting for this, and now I was ready. I went to the drawer, pulled out the folder labeled Emergencies, and opened it. 3 months earlier, Jessica had shown up with a tray of store-bought lemon bars and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We just need a little help," she said, setting the tray down like a peace offering, "just for a few weeks. My credit's shot and Brian's still waiting on that second job. You know how it is." I stood by the sink, dishcloth in hand, trying to read what her eyes were hiding that her words weren't saying. She talked fast, painting a picture of small needs, groceries, baby formula, a few tankfuls of gas. She didn't ask for cash, and that was deliberate. Instead, she said, "If there's a card we could use just for essentials, I swear it's temporary. You can check everything, full transparency." I could have said no, I should have. But I'd seen Brian struggling quietly for months, turning down my offers. If this was the only way to help without bruising his pride, I told myself I could manage it. So I gave her the gold card, linked to a secondary account I'd set up years ago with a low limit and no tie to my main funds. I'd created it after my sister borrowed money and disappeared. A safeguard for when I wanted to be kind without being exposed. I explained it clearly. It's not connected to my savings. It has a limit, only for necessities, no luxuries, no surprises. Jessica clasped her hands like I'd handed her a prize. "Thank you, Karen. This means everything to us." That night, she texted me, "You're a lifesaver. I wish my own mom was like you. Too sweet." That was when I should have paused, because 3 weeks later, Brian casually mentioned Jessica had found a deal on a designer stroller for the baby. "It was a steal," he said. "Down from $1,000 to $400. She said your card covered it." I didn't say anything, just nodded. But in my mind, I marked the first purchase that felt more like a splurge than survival. Then came the whispers. A friend mentioned seeing Jessica at a downtown spa. Another time, I noticed her new boots, definitely not from a discount store. Still, I waited. I let the pattern grow longer than I should have. There was always an excuse, always a reason. Now, standing in my kitchen with the maxed-out gold card, I saw what I'd known for a while. It wasn't just recklessness. Jessica was entitled. I fed the card into the shredder, watching it turn to confetti, then pulled out the next folder labeled Power of Attorney. I called Brian the next day. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to know. At some point between the shredded card and the revoked authorizations, I still hoped there was an explanation worth hearing. He answered on the second ring, voice heavy, like he'd just woken up. "Hey, Mom, can you come over?" I said. "Just you?" A pause, then a hesitant, "Yeah, I can." He arrived an hour later alone, hands stuffed in his hoodie, looking smaller than I remembered. He sat at the kitchen table like a stranger, shoulders slumped, eyes darting toward the door. I slid the transaction list across to him, not accusing, just quiet. "It was for gas," he mumbled after a long silence. "And groceries. I didn't know about the car or the bike." "Brian," I said softly, "it's almost $30,000. He stared at the paper like he wanted it to rewrite itself. I didn't think it'd go that far. I wanted to believe him, but trust has a shelf life, and mine was long past due. "She used your name for the bike," I said. "The financing papers, I found them." He closed his eyes. That's when I knew. He hadn't stopped her. Maybe he didn't know the exact amount, but he knew enough and let it slide. It hurt more than I expected. Not just the money, the trust, or the pride, but because this was Brian, my son, the kid who used to stand by the sink and scowl when I gave too much to my sister, to neighbors, to anyone who asked. "You don't have to fix everyone's life, Mom," he'd said at 10 years old. "People should fix themselves." He'd always seen me clearer than anyone, and now he was with someone who saw kindness as a blank check, not a virtue. Someone who used my instinct to help as a knife to twist with a smile and empty promises. I studied him, his tired face, slouched posture, quiet guilt. It wasn't that he didn't care. It was that he lacked the strength to choose right over easy. "You told me once I didn't have to fix everyone's life," I said, "that people sometimes need to learn the hard way." He didn't answer, just looked down and nodded once. I stood, went to the drawer, and pulled out a manila envelope. "Here are the loan confirmations, your old insurance, and the shared utility account history. I'm removing my name from everything." Brian didn't stop me. When he left, I watched him go, not with anger, not with coldness, just silence. Then I sat at my laptop, opened the bank's business portal, and started freezing all shared accounts. I called the bank first. I needed to hear it out loud. "Ma'am," the agent confirmed after a pause, "that card isn't linked to your active savings or investment accounts. It was a standalone credit line with a low limit." I exhaled a breath I didn't know I was holding. The account hadn't been drained because it never held anything real. Jessica took what she thought was mine, but she'd only grabbed smoke and mirrors. After hanging up, I checked my credit report. I expected a few dings, maybe a couple of inquiries, but not the red and yellow flags glaring at me. 3 new credit card applications in the last 6 weeks, all in my name. One was denied. Another was pending. The third was approved. I didn't feel anger or panic, just a strange, steady clarity, like realizing a leaky roof won't fix itself. I filed fraud reports, attached ID copies, signed forms, and sent notarized documents. I didn't call Brian or text Jessica. I just documented everything. Then I grabbed a yellow notebook and listed every shared tie still binding us. The electric bill in my name from when they were denied service during their move. I'd offered to help for 6 months, which turned into 2 years. Their Netflix, their Amazon Prime, the family phone plan I still paid for, the car insurance discount I'd added them to, the gas card, one by one. I opened browser tabs, clicked cancel, terminate, deactivate. The thread started snapping. No announcements, no explanations, just actions. When I reached the will, I paused for a second, then I called Mark, my lawyer. "I want to make some changes," I said. He booked me for Friday. By sunset, my desk was piled with confirmation emails and account closure receipts. The credit alert stopped pinging. The silence was sharp, clean, not empty, just finally free of noise that was never mine. I poured a cup of tea, sat on the porch, and watched neighborhood kids weave figure eights on their bikes. 2 blocks away, a dog barked at the breeze. The air smelled of fresh-cut grass and late summer. My phone buzzed once. An email from Jessica. Subject, "This is over the top." I didn't open it. Instead, I went inside, pulled the last unopened envelope from the cabinet. On the front, I'd written 2 words I never thought I'd need: emergency exit. It started with the car. On Monday morning, Jessica's new SUV was towed from their driveway. It wasn't quiet. A neighbor filmed it and posted it to a local Facebook group with the caption, "Guess someone skipped the fine print." She had. The financing was approved under my name, or so she thought, but the agency caught the discrepancy when the fraud report hit the system. The loan never fully processed. The title wasn't transferred. The insurance wasn't filed. It wasn't her car to keep. By Tuesday, the mountain bike, a custom high-end one she'd ordered for Brian's brother, vanished too. Stolen, apparently. They'd left it unlocked. No insurance, no recovery. The world has a way of tidying its own messes when you stop interfering. That night Brian called, I almost didn't answer. "Mom," he said, voice tight and breathless, "the car's gone. Jessica's losing it." "What did you do?" I held the phone, letting him hear his own question. "I'm protecting what's mine," I said firmly. He went quiet. "Did you report us?" "I reported fraud," I said evenly. He let out a faint sigh and hung up. "Lisa came over that night bringing a store-bought cake and pretending she'd baked it." "Thought you could use a friend," she said, plopping onto the couch. She listened as I walked her through the past week, step by step, no drama, just facts. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she sipped her wine and said, "Well, you finally closed the open tab." I smiled, not much, just enough. For years, I'd kept a mental ledger of what I gave, what I tolerated, what I let slide for peace. Now the balance was zero, not because I was repaid, but because I stopped loaning pieces of myself they hadn't earned. Lisa stayed until the moon was high and the cake half gone. When she left, she hugged me tight, looked me in the eye, and said, "Don't second-guess this." I nodded, meaning it. That night, I slept without checking my phone, no alerts, no messages, just the hum of the ceiling fan and the steady rhythm of my own breathing. In the morning, I found a letter under the doormat. Brian's handwriting, neat, careful, almost apologetic. I picked it up, turned it over, and set it on the kitchen table unopened. I poured a cup of coffee and waited for the hit I knew was coming. It came at 9:12 m. I didn't answer right away. I poured a second coffee, letting the kettle hiss long enough to make my point. When I opened the door, Jessica was pacing the porch in tight circles. Brian stood behind, arms crossed, jaw clenched. She pushed past me before I could speak. "You ruined us," she said, voice shaking, eyes already teary. "Because of a misunderstanding." Brian wouldn't meet my gaze, staring at the floor. I shut the door and leaned against it. Jessica went on. "They took the car. The bike's gone. Our credit's trashed. We can't get a loan or even apply for a new lease." Brian's boss asked why he's on a fraud watch list. "Do you realize what you've done?" I waited until she ran out of steam. "No," I said. "It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was years of small wounds I finally felt." She blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said calmly, "every time you took what wasn't yours, every time you smiled while doing it, every time you told yourself it was fine because I'd always be fine, you were cutting. And I told myself it was family, temporary, manageable, until it wasn't." Brian shifted slightly, still silent. "You always made things harder than they needed to be," Jessica snapped. "We needed help. You could afford it. You didn't have to do it so harshly." I stepped past her, opened a drawer, and pulled out a slim folder. I set it gently on the table. Inside was the fraud report, the documentation, the dates, the applications in my name. "This is what's harsh," I said. "This is what I was supposed to quietly forgive, but I won't anymore." Jessica opened the folder, skimming the pages, her fingers trembling. Brian finally spoke, barely a whisper. "We didn't mean to hurt you." I turned to him. "You once told me I didn't have to fix everyone's life, remember?" He nodded slowly. "You were right," I said, "so I stopped. You can't be shocked that I finally took your advice." Jessica looked up, deflated, not angry, just small. "So you're cutting us off for good?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The silence in the room was heavier than any yelling. They left without slamming the door. Brian turned back once on the porch, like he wanted to say something, but then followed Jessica down the steps. I stood at the window, watching them climb into a borrowed car, their shapes blurred by the glass. Then I turned, walked to my desk, and started a new list, one without their names. I woke up to sunlight spilling across the hardwood, the house still, no phone buzzing, no notifications, just the soft creak of the vents and birds chirping out back. It was my birthday, the kind of day that used to begin with a text from Brian, sometimes late, sometimes after Jessica nudged him. A quick happy birthday, Mom, maybe with a photo of a half-eaten cake or the baby holding a messy card. It wasn't much, but it mattered. This year, nothing, no text, no card, no call, not even a lazy emoji, just silence. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like something was missing. I sat with my coffee on the back porch, watching a squirrel dart along the fence. The silence wasn't absence, it was freedom. By noon, the sun had warmed the porch railings, and I nearly forgot what day it was. Then came a knock. I opened the door to Lisa, holding a bakery cake box and 2 coffees in a cardboard tray. She didn't say happy birthday right away, just handed me the box and said, "It's chocolate." I didn't ask. We sat at the kitchen table like we had 1,000 times, passing cake slices with our forks, no plates, no fuss. We laughed about the time we got kicked out of yoga for giggling, about the dinner where Jessica forgot my name introducing me to her boss. "Did Carol call you?" Lisa said, shaking her head. "Carol, whose husband you practically raised?" I smiled, no bitterness. It was a red flag, I just didn't see it. After she left, I checked my accounts. The Peace Fund, as I'd started calling it, had grown more than I expected. Nothing huge, just steady. No withdrawals, no surprise charges, just calm. I opened my password manager and changed the last logins. The shared streaming accounts were already gone. The services were clean. One by one, I locked every door they'd used to get in. I hesitated before updating the emergency contact forms. Brian's name was still on too. I replaced it with Lisa's, no guilt. Just a click, just the truth. That night, I poured a small glass of wine, stuck a candle in the last slice of cake, and didn't make a wish. I didn't need to. The gift had already come, quiet, whole, and entirely mine. She thought she'd drain me, but she used the wrong card.